The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. There are things people experience but never talk about. A shadow moving in the corner, flickering of the lights, a disembodied voice. We invite you to talk with us. Share your story, share your experience, because this isn't just your story, this is our story. This is GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
And this is GhostBox Radio on AM 950, where every night we talk about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. My name is Greg Bakun, and happy St. Patrick's Day. Well, post St. Patrick's Day, actually, since we're the day after here. But, you know, I hope everyone was safe. You know, it's always a fun night, right? But it's also one that, you know, people get a little weird, don't they? They get a little crazy out there. And I'm not going to say I hadn't been one of those people in a past life. Well, this life, years ago, I guess. But nevertheless, it's certainly, you know, you got to be careful out there. I really hope everybody had a great time, but also a safe time as well. You know, you can tell I'm getting older because that's where I'm going these days. It's not so much, I hope you had a great party night. It's more of, I just hope that you were safe. So that's a little bit of insight about myself. So here we are, St. Patty's Day, and we know we do tend to think about going out and having the green beer and stuff, but I think something else that may not get talked about a whole lot is just the fact that it's a beautiful time of year. It's spring. Spring is you know, things are blooming. You know, you think of green regardless, don't you? Whether it's St. Patty's Day or not, and it all is connected. It all works together. And, you know, I really wanted to have us have a beautiful conversation and an uplifting conversation after St. Patty's Day. And I was very blessed, actually, that I was able to get a hold of my guest today and that we're going to have this fantastic conversation. Tanis Helliwell is an author, and she has written a number of books. But what we're going to be focusing on today is a book called The Leprechaun Story, as told by Lloyd to Tanis Helliwell. And I'm really excited about this because there's a big story here. There's a lot to talk about. Tanis has written a lot about elementals. So I think we're just going to have a fantastic conversation, and I'm really looking forward to this. So Tanis, welcome to GhostBox Radio.
Well, thanks for having me, Greg. I'm looking forward to speaking with you about Lloyd and elementals as well.
My goodness. I mean, what a beautiful story. Just to be able to have this uplifting moment, and Lloyd talked to you, and I was talking with a friend about this, and, you know, we're all in a community that's all about, about spirits and all these different modalities that people not everyone accepts and believes in, and this is always, my show is a safe place for that. So we're talking about all this, and I said, you know, I'm gonna be talking with Tanis about leprechauns, and she's like, I've never heard of anybody actually having a conversation with a leprechaun. So this is pretty awesome.
Well, great, and I'm glad that your friend was intrigued by that as well.
So why don't we just kind of get started here? What is, and once again, the book is called A Leprechaun Story, as told by Lloyd to Tanis Helliwell. What is the story here? What's going on?
It's Lloyd's autobiography. I have been involved with Lloyd. He's been a friend of mine, the Leprechaun Lloyd, for 35 years or so.
Wow.
And I first met him when I went to the west coast of Ireland and rented a cottage, very old cottage, sight unseen, and it turned out to be occupied by Lloyd and his family. So I thought it was just going to be for that summer, but he told me that in 10 years I'd have to write a book, which I did. It was called Summer with the Leprechauns, and I've been working with elementals, leprechauns, and all sorts of nature spirits ever since then. So it's a long time that I've had this relationship with Lloyd.
Now, was Lloyd your introduction to having communication with other entities like elementals then?
Not really.
Okay.
I've been giving workshops all over the world on working and playing with elementals,
Sure.
Which is another word for nature spirits.
Yep.
And I've been doing that for 3 decades now. And I was a psychotherapist by training and had a practice. And I noticed after I met Lloyd, after I met the various elementals that I met during my summer in Ireland, that a lot of people who came to see me as humans for therapy had they were like elemental hybrids. There were certain characteristics that I could tell that they weren't fully human in our sense of what a human is. And so it started me on a whole journey. And so I added that to what I was teaching around the world. So it wasn't just what are elementals, how do they help the earth. It was people wanting to meet an elemental to work with themselves, and also answering the question, hey, is it possible that I have some elemental heritage? So this encounter with Lloyd has turned into become much larger than I ever thought when I was in this cottage.
So I have to ask, and I do it with a bit of delicacy, because I always have to, you want to ask questions that you want to get an answer to, but you don't want to make it sound like that you're not respecting the subject. But does Lloyd look like a standard leprechaun?
It's a good question. He dresses in old-fashioned clothes, but he is a little larger. To me, he's a little larger than what a standard leprechaun coming out of a cereal box or whatever, one of these cartoon characters would look like.
Yeah.
So he's about 4 feet tall. He's middle-aged. He has a bit of a paunch. And in his world, they're much longer lived. In the elemental world, that they live over 100 years easily, hundreds of years actually,
Sure.
Whereas humans, if we make it to 100 in good form, we're very lucky.
Yeah.
So he's been alive for over 100 years, and he only looks middle-aged.
Got it. And does he have the attributes of like a purebred Irish person, red hair, and I always imagine like leprechauns, the male leprechauns, not to have any kind of hair on the top of their head, like kind of the partial hair head thing. I'm just curious.
Well, he does have reddish hair. He also, though, wears a top hat. This is his formal attire and the way that he likes to show himself to others. So dressed very spiffily. He's quite proud and dressed very spiffily and with a top hat. So
he could technically walk around amongst us and not really cause too much of like anyone going, what is going on there? Because it's not. It doesn't sound like he necessarily would stick out in a abnormal sort of way if he was within society or anything.
Well, 2 things here, and
Okay.
your listeners and readers of my books would probably ask the same question. They'd be saying, well, is this physical? Does she see it physically?
Mm-hmm.
So I need to say that just as in you're calling your program, with ghost in it, and some people see ghosts.
Yeah.
It's the same way that not everyone sees ghosts. I see other realms. I have since I was a child.
Mm-hmm.
And so I see ghosts, or I see elementals, or I can see angels or higher beings. So that's how I see. Elementals live in a little higher frequency than our third-dimensional physical reality as humans.
Sure.
And but as you have said, you can see them out of the corner of your eye, sometimes going very quickly, and you wonder, what was that? Mm-hmm. Or some people will hear somebody talking to them, and they'll think, what was that? So we're starting to get closer to that frequency now. Humans are evolving to higher frequencies, and so we once were able to communicate and work with elementals, and farmers who were close to the land knew about this and always left out food offerings, such as honey and oats and milk and things like that for the little people. And all over the world, First Nations people believe in elementals.
Yeah.
But we of the Western world have lost this, and we've closed our eyes and our ears, sort of our higher senses, to these higher worlds. But they're opening again. That's the good news.
It is. It is. Now, I got a couple questions regarding that, and I might have to get to the other one after the break here. But when it comes to Lloyd in his appearance and whatnot, would he appear the same to everybody if he chose to appear to them, or does he have different guises depending on who he's talking to?
That is an excellent question, because I think what we do is we interpret these higher realities through our own filter. So, like when people are saying, oh, I've been talking to Archangel Michael, and you ask one person to describe what he's looking like, and then you ask someone else, and they could get quite different images or interpretations. And does that mean that one person sees and the other person doesn't and is making it up? Not necessarily. It comes through our own filter of how we perceive things.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it's possible, we don't know for sure, but it's possible that maybe Lloyd might look different to me, but it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, it's still Lloyd.
That's right. That's right.
I mean,
and some people do write to me and say, oh, gosh, your Lloyd was visiting with me. But a lot of people that I've worked with now, like I'd say thousands of people, I've helped them to find their own elementals that they can talk to. So so that's the good news.
I think it's interesting, because I suppose people would love to, after reading your book, The Leprechaun Story, as told by Lloyd to Tanis Helliwell, that they want to find Lloyd. But it's your point. It's like you got to find who works for you. There's that mutual attraction, if you will.
Yeah, you do. And it could be that a goblin wants to work with them, or it could be an elf wants to work with them. Lloyd's work is he travels all over the world, and they can travel in space and time in a second just by thinking of where they want to go. And his work for more than 3 decades, because he was doing this long before he ever met me, is to work with elementals that want to work with humans, to help partner people up. And so he hijacked me, if you like, to be his sidekick to get the humans who want to work with elementals.
You're kind of the ambassador, in a sense, for
I'm
him.
the ambassador in a sense, but whenever I travel with Lloyd, he's called the Grand. And so everybody makes a big fuss of him, and I'm kind of like the sidekick or the straight person in a comic act.
So you don't have to be in Ireland for you now to experience and get any sort of messages from Lloyd or interactions with Lloyd.
Yeah, absolutely not. He comes to my home here in Canada. I give him tea. I give him oatmeal. Occasionally, I'll give him a little tipple of Guinness or something.
Oh, I bet he
So,
likes that.
no, we have a great relationship without me going to Ireland. That being said, I love going back to Ireland, and I've been there many, many times.
I love that. I love that. Why don't we go ahead and do this? Let's take our first break. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Tanis Helliwell. We're going to talk about her book, The Leprechaun Story, as told by Lloyd to Tanis Helliwell. I have so many questions. This is amazing. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. This Wednesday on GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun, tune in for one-question readings with the highly acclaimed psychic medium, Refined Divine, who can answer questions about love, life, and connecting with past loved ones. Get a potentially life-changing reading by calling.
But it answers a question I've had all my life.
Delve into the exceptional talents of Refined Divine at refinedivine.com and experience her live Wednesday at 10 p.m. for psychic medium Refined Divine on GhostBox Radio.
Magus Books, your multicultural spiritual supply store. Stop in and expand your horizons with books, classes, readings, and supplies at magusbooks.com or in our shop at 1848 Central Avenue Northeast in Minneapolis. From the best incense to beautiful statues, we have supplies and books for your spiritual explorations. Come in and chat with our knowledgeable staff and get what you need for your next adventure, whether you're fighting ghosts or opening your third eye. Check us out today at magusbooks.com.
Reach your highest level of consciousness and well-being with MetamorphosisConnections.com. MetamorphosisConnections.com is an online directory of the best holistic and metaphysical practitioners to help you make your most informed choices. You can search MetamorphosisConnections.com for classes, events, wellness and life coaches, plus metaphysical products and shops. You can also search for a wide array of healers from all modalities, including EFT, sound healing, energy healing, light therapy, ancestral healing, shamanic healing, reflexology, past life regressions, hypnotherapy, yoga, and more. And if you're not sure where to start, the search feature on MetamorphosisConnections.com is tailored to help both those who know what they are looking for and those who are just starting. Come explore the possibilities for your higher self by visiting MetamorphosisConnections.com. Their experienced practitioners can guide both beginners and those that are already on their spiritual journey. That's MetamorphosisConnection.com, your link to direct you on your spiritual transformation.
And welcome back to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. I'm Greg Bakun. Thank you very much. Once again, happy post-St. Patrick's Day. I hope everyone had a good time. So here we go. We're having this fantastic conversation tonight. I was able to get some time with author Tanis Helliwell. We're talking about her book, The Leprechaun Story, as told by Lloyd to Tanis Helliwell. Of course, Lloyd is the leprechaun in the story here. And Tanis, one of the things that you had mentioned in the last segment was the fact that now the Western world is starting to kind of get back that the energy and being able to see beyond just like what is put in front of them. My question to you, though, is why do you think we neglected that for so long?
I think it was part of our evolution that we wanted to descend further and further into the lower frequencies, to learn how to manifest in form. And elementals manifest all the form in the world naturally. That is their purpose, to create the water and the forests and the mountains, the air. That's what elementals do. And humans, I believe, were always meant to be co-creators with elementals to create a beautiful world here. And we have always had free will. And we were to use our free will in cooperation. And during the technological age, where we moved into wanting to control the earth ourselves, we've lost our connection to spirit. Mm-hmm. And elementals are completely aligned to spirit because natural laws are the same as spiritual laws. But humans have become alienated from both spiritual and natural laws, but we are regaining this now. We're starting to wake up and see what we have lost.
That makes sense. I also wonder, too, recently we did a program about just the overall energy of the earth, meaning like the people on it, and how there's a lot of worry going on. And I wonder if our worry in general about things that are happening around the earth starts helping us open up a little bit more too, because it's like, where else are we going to go? We need more. We need guidance that's beyond what we're seeing in front of us.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think people don't change until the pain of not changing becomes greater than the pain of changing.
Absolutely. That's very good. I like that a lot. Now, talking about Lloyd, and I'm so excited about Lloyd and stuff. You know, one of the things, because you had very kindly sent me the book. I also went on the Amazon site just to kind of see what people thought. There's one review that I thought was really interesting, and I was just kind of curious what you think about this. So and this is just the first line that they had, and it had me kind of wonder a little bit too. They just said it's very enjoyable. I enjoyed reading this. Can't tell you how much was fact and how much was fiction. What do you think when you hear that? Even though they gave you 5 stars, by the way.
I'm okay with it. If people read books about the elementals, and I've written 4 now, and they say, it was a great story, I really enjoyed it, and they talk to other people about it, and other people start reading it as well, and they think of it as a great story, because I tried to make books entertaining, like novels,
yeah.
Then that's one level. But what has happened is a seed has been planted in them, a seed of possibility that, as the person you quoted said, I don't quite know how much is fact and how much is fiction. So a door is already starting to open.
Sure, yeah.
And I think that is great, because we don't start changing until we start questioning. And I love it when people have critical awareness and question everything, because they have to learn to have their own discernment. So I'm fine with it.
What you're doing there clearly is you're challenging them without them realizing that you're challenging them, aren't you?
That's true. And Lloyd is a challenger. He's challenged me. He's taken me on wild adventures, and so this is part of elemental nature. Actually, elementals are fun-loving, spontaneous, uncensored. So, and when elementals look at you, whether it's a goblin or an elf or a leprechaun, when they look at you, they see the potential of who you can become. And they push on the stuck places so that you can get unstuck and become the best of who you can become. And that isn't always kind. They don't think in terms of, oh, I have to be nice here. No. They think of what's the most efficient way to do this. So in a way, they're kind of amoral. They're not immoral. They're amoral. They don't have the same set of laws that we have.
That makes sense. And I suppose that's why they sometimes come across as very mischievous. because they're going to be
That's
doing.
it.
They're going to do
That's
something.
it exactly,
Yeah.
because they love to joke, especially leprechauns. Leprechauns are very fast-thinking, highly intelligent, and they are crafty in that they love to try to outsmart you in a way. And I know Lloyd is so happy with me when I can, in a dialogue or anything, outsmart him.
It shows that
He loves it.
I bet he thinks that
The
you're.
game.
Yeah, and that you're challenging him.
Exactly.
And it doesn't happen very often, does it? I mean, just in his lifetime, because.
Well, not too often, because leprechauns are very fast on their feet.
Like literally as well as figuratively, like brain-wise?
Both ways.
Yeah.
Both ways.
That's pretty.
If you think of, like I mentioned earlier on about elemental hybrids and the possibility that elementals and other beings have incarnated into human evolution. And I wrote a book on this, actually, called Hybrids, So You Think You're Human, and where I talked about 22 possible kinds of hybrids in human evolution. But one of the things about possible leprechaun hybrids, I'll give you an example of two that I believe are leprechauns.
Okay.
One very well known, Robin Williams.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Just think of, everybody said that he was the best comic that ever was, right? He was so fast. He didn't need a script. He just was it. He was always in the moment.
That I suppose then that also shows that even though you might be that hybrid, it doesn't alleviate those human ghosts, I guess, demons in you that Robin had as well.
Well, one of the things about elementals is that they don't have the same feelings about suicide that we have, for example.
Okay.
In our Christian tradition, it is a moral sin to kill yourself.
Yep.
But in the elemental world, when you get old and life doesn't feel like living anymore, they just fade. They fade. So they are able to move into non-existence in a natural, organic way. Whereas in our human world, thinking about I don't want to be here anymore isn't necessarily going to mean that you're going to die tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I understand that. One other thing too, and kind of, and I apologize if I'm jumping around a little bit. One of the things I found also very interesting, and that we talk about a little bit as well, is we're talking about energy as well, right? And I like the fact that when you're talking about how the Western civilization kind of in a sense turned its back on understanding more of the higher energies and stuff, but the idea too is like how we kind of think about this stuff. We do segregate, don't we? We put everything into a silo. The general we, I should say, not you, not myself. But we put stuff in silos. So if we think about elementals, we think of them, they're doing their own thing. What you're talking about is we all should be collaborating together.
Yeah, as in how to collaborate with them. Is that what you're asking, Greg?
More of the fact that because we see it, a lot of us see it as, elementals exist, we exist, we're all in different planes. Where kind of what you were saying, at least the way I was picking up, is like we should be interacting a lot more together.
Well, I agree, because we're going to be. As we're moving into a higher frequency, and we are, because people are having breakthroughs into different dimensions. I mean, I personally don't take psilocybin or hallucinogenics because I don't, I see other dimensions by themselves.
Yeah.
But isn't it interesting how many people have been taking mushrooms and LSD or things like this to break through some sort of block in their consciousness? so that they can see and know other dimensions, meaning they want a more spiritual, fulfilled contact with spirit, right?
Yeah.
So that allows them to see and know things that maybe mystics have always seen and known, or psychics have seen and known. And I find that interesting that First Nations people have introduced a lot of these hallucinogenics to the Western kind of civilized world, and I don't mean that pejorative way at all.
Yeah.
But they have introduced these things, and this is also helping quite a few people to have their experiences, because they're part of, if it doesn't happen to me, I don't believe it, right? Some people, you've got to, they can't take anything on faith. They have to have their experience.
Absolutely.
And so that gives them their experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's people, and I probably am one of them myself. I mean, I'm a believer, hook, line, and sinker. The idea, though, trying to get somewhere else, I think I root myself too much on the earth that it makes it hard for me to astral plane or do anything else that I really want to do, because it's so hard for me to kind of let go, I guess, might be the way I look at it.
Well, thanks for mentioning that, because most humans, in fact, me too, in a way, I mean, I would just say it's a human failing, this control issue. Mm-hmm. And this has really come out of this industrial and technological age. Mm-hmm. There's major control issues we have. And why would we be so worried about losing control? Well, it's because we fear that the enemy is out there.
Yeah.
People are basically afraid that there is an enemy. And if they lose control, then, they're going to be, if they lose control, bad things could happen.
I agree with that, but I will also say one of the things, when you were talking, one of the things that kind of comes to my mind when I think of myself, I'm afraid to fail. I'm afraid that I'm going to put any kind of effort into it. It doesn't work the first time, which I know that nothing really ever works the first time. And I'm just like, well, forget that. I mean, clearly I'm never going to get this. I don't know what I'm doing. And that always seems to be kind of my worst enemy.
Oh, that's a great insight, actually, because one of the other things that people have is this feeling of they're not enough, right? They're not enough, and how could wonderful things possibly come to them? Because it's sort of like an inferiority complex. Maybe, unless you live in New York.
That's funny.
but I think that this is a very common thing for people, and elementals are not like that. Elementals are continually experimenting. Like in my book, The Leprechaun Story, which we've been talking about, which is Lloyd's autobiography. I mean, I did not write that book.
Yeah.
Lloyd actually dictated that book to me. He wrote that book. And one of the things that was funny in what they're doing now in the elemental world is, in the elemental world, the trolls and the goblins and the leprechauns and elves are all trying to work together to build new architectural structures. And they're having problems with their co-creative efforts, because traditionally trolls hang out with trolls and they work with the rocks and stones and minerals. Elves hang out with elves, and they are the royal class, and they're they are into beauty and things like that. And leprechauns hang out with leprechauns, and they're craftspeople. But what they're doing now in the elemental world, just like we're doing it here in the human world, is they're trying to learn how to work together with all the different castes. And if you think about it, Greg, this is what's going on in our world right now. It used to be, like 100 years ago, if you were like white Caucasian and you lived in Minnesota or you lived in Canada like me, I mean, you may never leave your hometown, or you just might meet a whole bunch of the same kind of people. And now we really are a global community, and we have intermarriage and inter-everything. Yeah. So we are experimenting with becoming an interdependent, inter-racial, inter-everything society, and there's the elementals experimenting too. But you know what? When they build an architectural structure, they don't care if they fail.
Yeah.
They just laugh at it, and then they try again. But we take it seriously because money is involved.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. Tanis, why don't we go ahead and do this? Let's take our next break. When we come back, I want to talk more about Lloyd. We haven't talked about him that much this segment. I want to talk more about him coming up. I have a lot of questions, and we're going to talk more about what Tanis is coming up with next. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. This Wednesday on GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun, tune in for one-question readings with the highly acclaimed psychic medium, Refined Divine, who can answer questions about love, life, and connecting with past loved ones. Get a potentially life-changing reading by calling.
I can answer the question I've had all my life.
Delve into the exceptional talents of Refined Divine at refinedivine.com and experience her live Wednesday at 10 p.m. for psychic medium Refined Divine on GhostBox Radio. Greg Bakun here. Like you, I love good, fresh, delicious food. So I want to tell you about this treasure in Roseville called Maverick's Real Roast Beef. Maverick's has the best roast beef sandwiches I've ever had. Made fresh every order. Add fries or onion rings dropped in the fryer when ordered, and you have a winning combination. Maverick's Real Roast Beef has a lot more than roast beef, so check out their website, mavericksbeef.com, or check out their restaurant on Lexington in Roseville.
Reach your highest level of consciousness and well-being with metamorphosisconnections.com. Metamorphosisconnections.com is an online directory of the best holistic and metaphysical practitioners to help you make your most informed choices. You can search metamorphosisconnections.com for classes, events, wellness and life coaches, plus metaphysical products and shops. You can also search for a wide array of healers from all modalities, including EFT, sound healing, energy healing, light therapy, ancestral healing, shamanic healing, reflexology, past life regressions, hypnotherapy, yoga, and more. And if you're not sure where to start, the search feature on metamorphosisconnections.com is tailored to help both those who know what they are looking for and those who are just starting. Come explore the possibilities for your higher self by visiting metamorphosisconnections.com. Their experienced practitioners can guide both beginners and those that are already on their spiritual journey. That's metamorphosisconnection.com, your link to direct you on your spiritual transformation.
Welcome back to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. My name is Greg Bakun. Happy St. Patrick's Day, and we've been having a fantastic conversation with author Tanis Helliwell. We've been talking about her book, The Leprechaun Story, as told by Lloyd to Tanis Helliwell. And as we are learning from the last segment, it's not her book per se, because it's Lloyd's autobiography. So, you did the typing at least, right? So, I mean, you got that.
Yes, I was the person. I was the person who was typing it out and making it into a book. So it wasn't that I didn't do anything, but it is his autobiography.
So, first of all, for those who are going to want to pick up this book, first of all, you can certainly go to your website, TanisHelliwell.com. That's TanisHelliwell.com. And all sorts of stuff is on here, all about you and about your speaking schedule and your books and everything else. So definitely got to go out there to TanisHelliwell.com to pick up all the information about what you've been up to and what you're doing. So let's see here. We were talking about Lloyd. And, one thing I wanted to ask you about, we talked a little bit about astroplane and stuff. And you said you've been on a lot of adventures with Lloyd. Have you left like your physical realm and traveled with him to different places?
Yes. How to answer that question? I used to take people, for 22 years, I took people to sacred sites around the world to help find out what were those sites used for and their acupuncture points on the earth and how to open them up so that the earth energy could flow freely. And I would take people, and they would also go through their spiritual experiences, too. So that was for healing the earth. And that's what Lloyd and elementals are interested in. They want to heal the earth, and they want to work with humans who do it. Now, when I travel around the world, because I do, I travel physically in an airplane like anyone else would do. But for me, it is like tuning a radio. You and I are talking right now, and we are using a certain frequency, and we're having a certain conversation that belongs to that frequency. And yet, I can stop talking to you, and I can tune into higher frequencies and talk with elementals, or I'm just writing a book right now on dragons and the dragon world.
Nice.
So because there are many, many worlds, and they all exist in other frequencies, other astral frequencies. So that's kind of a long-winded answer to your question about how do I do it. And I can do that anywhere.
Sure.
Tune into other frequencies and other worlds. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, and it is certainly not long-winded at all, because, I mean, I think there's a lot of people who are listening, and including myself, who finds that all very fascinating, and I think some of us are a little jealous of the fact that you're able to do so. But I think what it comes down to for those of us, and we kind of touched on this last segment, those of us who are not doing it, and I'm going to use myself as a prime example of this, still are not putting in the time to hone it either. And that's, you have to do that.
Yeah,
and
there's two things I'd recommend. I've been a meditator since I was in my early 20s. And so meditating and many different kinds of meditation helps to still the mind and improve concentration and open up your intuition. So that would be number one.
Yep.
The other thing I would recommend to people is a lot of people ignore signs from the universe. The universe might just drop hints, and people say, "Oh no, that was my imagination,"
Sure.
and they block out these hints. They don't pick up on them. And so people need to create a pause in their life to start listening with their higher ears and hearing with their higher eyes to pick up on the hints that the universe drops right in front of us.
It truly is stop and smell the roses, isn't it? Okay, that was a lead balloon. Because, I mean, that's got kind of what I'm, feel about that is like you stop and you smell the roses, you can pick up what's being said around you.
Yeah, yeah, and be closer to nature. I'm an organic gardener. I even have fruit trees. I walk in nature daily. It's moving into harmony with natural cycles and with the earth. All of these things, realizing that natural laws are the same as spiritual laws, help people to open up these other senses and to raise their frequency and not to let fear get in the way. I do, as a psychotherapist, I do online courses all the time, and right now I'm in the middle of doing a 5-week program for folks called Answer Your Soul's Call. And the one that I did in the fall before this one was called Freedom from Fear. Mm-hmm. And those go hand in hand if we want to answer our soul's call, which is really to listen to spirit in whatever form that presents to each person. We have to release our fears, as we were talking earlier about releasing our fear of losing control and all the terrible things that can happen to us. We have to take steps to into the unknown, steps into change. We have to say things that may be unpopular, but it's our truth and our reality.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's like people already say what they have that gut intuition about certain things, and they learn. Some people learn to like believe in themselves in that regard. Like, oh, I feel like I should be doing this instead of that, and they don't realize that can be applied to a much greater level. That's universal, I guess.
That's true. If you start listening to the smaller things, after a while you're listening to larger things. Yeah, and then what unfortunately happens, and so they're right, something is going to change in them that will change their world. If we start taking enough steps into these higher realities, our whole old paradigm for who we are and who are others and what is the world and what should we do with our life, all these major questions, those all change.
Yeah, absolutely it does. Now, I was just curious because as Lloyd talked to you about his family, had you ever met any of his family? Or is it always just
yes,
you have?
Yes. In the book, there's one chapter written by his leprechaun lass, his lady, and I met her when I first was in the cottage 30 years ago, and I never had a conversation really because she was quite shy at that time, but now she's becoming emancipated. And she's converting all the people in her little town of Kiel in Western Ireland on Achill Island. And all the other leprechaun lasses are becoming emancipated as well. So, yes, I've met her. He has 2 sons, and one is a musician and travels around with elementals, and the other one is a bit of a problem. He's the difficult child. He's the older child. He's the difficult one. But he is finding his way. So, yes, I've met them.
Wow, very cool. As we're running out of time here, we've about a minute and a half, 2 minutes left. When you went to that cottage 20 years ago, was that where he lived? Or did he seek you out, and that was the place that he needed to meet you at?
No, he lived there, and he had lived there for over 100 years. And for those listeners who are suspecting this could all be a fantasy, one of the chapters, the very last chapter of the Leprechaun story, his book, I go and I interview all the local residents of this town, Kiel, and I get all their stories about the history of the cottage. And it was built in the 1700s, and locally the people call it the fairy cottage because so many people have had experiences, and they call the lane where I was the fairy lane because so many people have had experience and believe that there are leprechauns in that cottage. There.
So there. The book is called The Leprechaun Story, as told by Lloyd to Tanis Helliwell. Tanis, we can get the book on Amazon, and we can also get it on your website, tanishelliwell.com. Do you offer signed copies that way?
No, I don't. If you go on my website, you'll just get directed to Amazon to get it, either an ebook or a paper book. I'm sorry to your listeners, but nope, I don't.
But still go to the site, see what Tanis is up to. Tanis, thank you so much for a wonderful conversation.
I've enjoyed it too, Greg, and do have a wonderful life continuing on, and hopefully the elementals will be blessing you, and it's going to open up some of your second sight.
Thank you very much. We'll be back tomorrow, everyone. Have a great evening and take care.